Okay. Okay. Hi, Tony. Hope things are going well for you. Again, nothing crazy, no hate. I'm not upset or anything. It's just things like this are usually just things that people put out, and like maybe they agree with like two or three things, or they kind of agree with two or three things, and then they throw it out there. But underlying, there's usually like something in there that's like really strangely not cool. So I don't know. Most of this stuff is just gonna be platitudes, and it's gonna be stuff that is like, of course, yeah, nobody disagrees that there's hypocrisy on both sides. Nobody disagrees, but it very often lacks policy or things specific. All right, usually just compares two things that probably aren't going to be comparable or something like that. So usually like a bunch of whataboutisms and things like that. So like if I said, "Oh, the people who attacked the Capitol, they are domestic terrorists," then things like this would say, "Well, what about this past summer?" It's like, okay, there's two different situations headed up by two different people, and of course the property was different. Like the situations are crazy, crazy different. So that's like whataboutism, right? You go, oh well, instead of looking at this, what about that, right? So I'll go through this, but I can't do it through text based Facebook. I'm also aging, and I mean, you saw Melanie comment to one of your comments earlier. Me and Melanie have been going back and forth, and my poor fingers, they hurt. They hurt so much because I'm not good at typing. So I'm gonna try to do this on a video. We'll see how it works. I don't even know if Facebook's gonna allow me to put this as a comment. I have no idea. So here we go. I'm gonna read this. It's probably pretty small on your screen, so I apologize. But this morning I realized that everything is about to change. No matter how I vote, no matter what I say, lives are never going to be the same. Now it really just depends on who is voting here. Oh, let me see. It really just depends on who's voting. Because he's right. The author, whoever they are, they're right in the sense that, yeah, it's likely that their vote probably won't matter. Okay, so let's break it down to 100. Let's say that there's about 50% Republicans, right? And let's say there's 50% Democrats. That seems to be the case, at least in Georgia right now, right? Seems to be the case, which it's not true. Like, if you look at census data, most people are pretty liberal. They just either are too young to vote, or they choose not to vote because they don't care. They're 18 to 24. Like, they're in that range where it's like, no, I'd rather go party, things like this. So let's say we have 50% Republican, 50% Democrat, and we're gonna age this population. If this is a fake population, of course, but let's say that this is what it is, and everybody voted, and let's say it was completely 50-50. Republicans tend to be conservatives, right? Meaning that they want to conserve the way things are. They want to conserve the debt. They want to take down the debt. They don't want to pay for things. Most of the time, conservatives are older, richer people. Why would they want to contribute more to something they felt they've already contributed to and give away the things that they've earned? Democrats are likely progressives or liberals. I don't know. It's kind of a pretty wide umbrella. Sock Dems, and they all kind of have a different, like, there's a bunch of different little trees in both Republicans and Democrats. But I'm gonna make the argument here in a minute that the Democrats are the better way to go, even though I'm not necessarily a Democrat. But we're gonna get to that. All right, I'm sure. So 50% Republican, 50% Democrat. Let's age this population by 30 years, right? Let's age this population by 30 years. Now, we would likely see maybe medicine gets good, so this doesn't really take too much of a hit, but it does go down. Let's say it turns into 44% Republican, because not all of them are it's just how it is. Young people get to the age where they are allowed to vote, and old people age out to where they either cannot vote anymore, like maybe they're busy knitting. I don't know. I don't know the old person mentality yet, thank goodness. Or maybe for whatever reason they're mentally not there, or maybe perhaps they have died. They cannot vote anymore. The ideas that they had with them eventually trickle away. Things like slavery. Things like slavery used to be an old idea. People used to like it. It aged out. We had an entire civil war out of it, and then eventually people became less and less. Oh yeah, yeah. Like I don't think anyone's around right now. It's not true. There are some. I don't think there's very many people around right now that would be cool with slavery. So hold on, let's see. Let's do 56% Democrat. Okay, so if we aged this population by like 30 years, and let's say that that's what happened. It might not be the case, but let's say that that's what happened. All right, I'm sorry. I'm drawing with a mouse on not a keypad, or not a mouse pad, so it's going. This is just how it goes. If you keep things the same, 30 years ago, or was it 40 years ago? I forget. There's a really cool video on YouTube. The Democrats used to be very Republican in terms of, and the Republicans used to be very Democrat. Like the way they view things completely switched. This is why Abraham Lincoln was Republican, because he believed in different things. Like the parties switched, the favor on both sides switched, and it's likely to do it again, just based on how things are going. Because this guy's right with this first line. The way he's voting, if he's like Republican, yes, if he votes the same way and he doesn't change his views or doesn't concede on a few points to get some of his points through, then yes, this is eventually what it'll be, and it'll continually get worse. 56 to 44, that's an entire 12-point loss, and that's eventually what you would see unless you change things. This is why Republicans went with Trump in 2016. They were not going to win with another candidate. They needed Trump to beat Hillary Clinton. And there was crazy many factors, and that's a whole other conversation. But yes, they did end up winning. Okay, so he's absolutely right? I just realized that everything's about to change. Yes, I'm a progressive. Change is good. I hate some new things that are happening, like the floss and random things like that, but that's just how it is. That's just how it goes. One progressive thing that I'm not a super fan of is cancellation or censorship. Like, these are things that, well, if I don't like it, then it shouldn't be out there. Well, it's like, well, there's a lot of people out there. We're gonna have no anything if somebody doesn't like it, if that's, yeah. So I'm not a very big fan of that, but it's something that is going to come, and instead of me going against it, I'm going to bring it in, I'm going to alter it and say, okay, there's got to be terms to it, regulate it, right? That's what I say. All right, but anyway, here we go. And what I mean by platitudes is that he's not really saying anything here. He's saying a general truth that everybody can agree to, kind of like a horoscope. I have been confused by the hostility of family and friends. I haven't seen any hostility from my family or my friends. I mean, I have a couple cousins on two different sides of my family who every once in a while they'll say something, and I'll respond, and we have a good conversation, and it's always calm. But that's my experience. Of course, other people could, it's possible, other people could have hostility, and I don't agree with that. Like, canceling your family and friends, it seems to be a little bit silly. I look at people I've known all my life so hate-filled that they agree with opinions they would never express on their own. Okay, so this one I agree with only because it can go both ways. There's people who I know on my Facebook feed who are actively defending things that I go, that's not what a religious person like you would be defending. That's very, very strange that you would defend this. And when I do get down to their religion, if I were to have a conversation with them, I'm sure that it would eventually get down to, okay, so this is what you believe religiously. Why isn't this something that you believe in your life? And it's crazy, and I'm sure other people say that about me, that I'm defending things that I would never agree to as my own. Probably the biggest and easiest one would be like abortion or something. Yeah, I don't think I would ever optionally choose abortion if I'm ever in that situation. But I'm not ever going to be in that situation. That's my point, is that it's not going to be my choice. I am arguing for the freedom of choice, right? So it on both sides, this comment could easily be accepted as something that people are seeing. I think that I may have well entered into the Twilight Zone. That's an old reference. Whoever wrote this is a little older, but sure. You cannot justify this insanity. Okay, that's vague. What's insane? Because you know what's insane to me is people being directed by Giuliani and Trump to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue ready for combat. And then 30 minutes later, they storm the Capitol building and put not only Democratic senators in jeopardy, but independent and Republican senators as well. And they ended up killing a Capitol police officer. And all that craziness that ensued. I think that's insane. I think that's insanity. So again, this is another line that is very horoscopy, in sense that, I mean, it could be said of both sides here. But I'm going to make the argument a little bit later that the both sides argument is a little bit sus. But here we go. You can't justify this insanity. It's very vague. It's not specific. It's meant to be shared on like something like Facebook and garner a lot of likes, because not very many people are going to disagree with this. We have become a nation that has lost its collective mind. Again, vague, nothing. There's no policy. There's nothing there. It's just, if I was to post that anywhere, people would agree with it because they had no idea what I'm talking about. So what I mean is, people will share this, but maybe the original author meant black people marrying white people. Like that's what I mean, is like, this is so vague, you have no idea what the author meant by this. We see our country, we see other countries going socialist and collapsing. Which ones? And what I mean by that is, this is a very difficult one to, again, when we do text-based things, it's so easy to get lost between the lines. We see other countries going socialist and collapsing, but I'm not sure which, like I'm not sure what ones he's talking about, because you could go all the way to Venezuela, right, and see the craziness that goes there, or you could go to like the United Kingdom, who's pretty socialist, or Germany, who's pretty socialist, or Canada, who's pretty socialist, and they're doing pretty fine. They're doing pretty okay. So there's a wide range that he could be critiquing here. Again, vague. It's super vague, but it seems like a great plan to us. I think it is a great plan to us. When I get hurt, I expect a hospital to be ready for me. That's a socialist program. When my house catches fire, which again, some of my cousins, this happened in some of my family members' lives, even in this past year, I expect a fire department to come out and put it out without me having to pay them. Like, it's just something that they do. These are things that I expect. These are socialist programs. Public schools are socialist programs. So again, whoever wrote this, the author, they're using this dirty word, socialist, but they're not being specific about it. They're being very, very vague. It's very strange. Somehow it's un-American for the census to count how many Americans are in America. I would have to see what he's referencing here. I've not heard of this. People who say there is no such thing as gender are demanding a female president. Okay, I can see the hypocrisy here. I see this. I personally believe that whoever should be president is the best person for the job. I think the presidency should be more of a mascot position. This is why I was A-okay with Bernie Sanders being in there, because I thought he was a good guy. He actually cared about people. He was a good person. When Trump was first elected, I was hopeful, but very, very doubtful that he was going to be a good thing for the world, and we have seen that that is indeed the case. People who say there's no such thing as gender are demanding a female as president. I don't think there's people who say there are no such thing as gender. I think there are people who are saying that the way that people think of gender is flawed. There's biological gender, right, like sex, male, female. That's what most people consider as gender. I think these people are telling you there's more things than that. There's androgynous, which is kind of mixed with both. I'm not very well versed in the whole gender thing, and this is one of those things that even as I grow up, I'm gonna be a little bit like, wait, what, huh? But these are things that are gonna happen. This is just progression. This is what it is. What it is. What it does. Right. Again, people, like, specify. Tell us who, so that I know who you're arguing for or against. Who say there's no such thing as gender demanding a female president. No, but okay, so let's assume that this was a conservative who wrote this, and let's say that it was in the past 2 months. We voted for Biden, and then you guys voted for Trump, so I don't know who they're talking about here. I know that the third party candidate was a female, I think, but that's not going to happen. All right, universities that advocate equality discriminate against Asian Americans in favor of African Americans. That is interesting. And they might be referencing that there's very likely a stat that African Americans get more opportunities to go to university on reduced or free basis, right? Like they get more scholarships or something, which is probably true. Asian Americans are often, when they immigrate here, top of the class, right? Whereas African Americans are often refugees. So they're already starting, like, the race at completely different points. So he might be referencing that, but again, very vague, no clue what he's talking about. So again, Tony, if you're watching this all the way through, I don't know if you are, but maybe you are. I have no clue. This is what I mean by every little tiny point in this takes so long to respond to. So I don't know, maybe I'll timestamp it and you can take a break and then come back to it later. I don't know. Okay. Some people are held responsible for things that happened before they were born. Okay, this is probably talking about, oh, your ancestors were racist or whatever, and other people are not held responsible for what they are doing right now. Okay, interesting. Some people are held, okay, this seems like two different things here, but again, very, very vague. Some people are held responsible for the things that happened before they were born. Okay, so this is probably the whole reparations thing, right? I don't know how I feel about reparations. I'd have to do more research into it, but it seems to me that after slavery, after imprisoning people for years, we didn't really give them much of anything. We just said, good, go live. And that was about it. And they had to work from almost less than nothing to remain as a thing in the South. And we didn't really do that. So I don't know. I don't know if that's like, and I don't know how they would be implemented, but I think I probably agree with this, that, yeah, I don't know if you should be holding white people super responsible now for the sins of white people's past. I don't know if that's really what we should be doing, because then the argument could be made that we hold Germany citizens now accountable for the things that happened in the past, which we wouldn't do very often. If you can hear that, that's a commercial for the music I'm playing, which is likely going to be demonetized or copywritten, whatever. And other people are not held responsible for what they're doing now. I think this is probably true of all ages. Life's not fair. Life's not fair. It's how it goes. There were hundreds of people that stormed that Capitol, and I believe that every single person who went in there illegally as a part of the mob should be charged with something. I don't know if there's a base level small thing, a fine, 2 years community service. I don't know, something. They need to be dealt with. But I don't think that they are. I think they're going to go after the few who were disruptive in terms of, like, violent. But I think every single one of them needs to be charged in some way or the other. Because we just can't do that. But again, vague. I have no clue what they're talking about here. Criminals are caught and released to hurt more people. I'd have to know more here. Like, what criminals? Because even Trump, like, one of the better things about Trump's thing is that he did indeed go in and help more than a few black individuals get out of jail based on unfairly termed prison sentences. So even he did that. So I don't know what this is all about. But stopping them is bad because it's a violation of their rights. Again, vague. I don't understand. I don't understand what he's saying there. It's very, very vague. People, and this one is one of those Douglasley ones, meaning that he's being so vague here that it's like some people would agree with this. Maybe they feel that and they'll share it, but really the author meant, I hate black people, and that's what I hate. Maybe, I'm not saying that is, but that might be what it might be. That one seems really, really suspicious to me. People who have never owned slaves should pay slavery reparations by people who have never been slaves. Okay, so this one again, like this one, I'd have to hear the arguments and stuff, but it seems to be that there was no cost paid to slave owners. There was the Civil War where just craziness and everything, and then after that, it's like, okay, good luck. And they've been fighting a negative battle from the start. It just seems to be the case when you look at the statistics and everything. They just never have seemed to have an equal go of things. It just seems to be that that's how it goes. Now, this whole reparations thing, I'd have to see more arguments on it to really decide which way I would vote one way or the other if I were to vote, but on something like that. But, I mean, I have money, right? And if this money is proven to go to, let's say, a minority kid, I would imagine it would go to an African-American kid somewhere in my city or in my town or in my neighborhood who had slaves, then awesome, I would be all for that if indeed they needed it, but only if they needed it, right? I don't think anyone would really disagree. But the way people present these things is like this. You never owned a slave. You never did anything wrong, but you have to pay for the sins of your fathers. That's not really the case. The case is, because of all that bad stuff that happened back then, still today we're seeing people start the race to like the American dream at a negative starting point, right? And that shouldn't be the case. Everyone should have the best chance at being successful. Let's see here. After legislating gender, if a dude pretends to be a woman, you are required to pretend with him. Okay, so this is another one of those things that many people probably don't agree with, but this is another one of those things. This is probably transphobism here. After legislating gender, if a dude pretends to be a woman, you are required to pretend with him. So they're saying that if somebody shows up and they say, hey, I'm a woman, you have to say, hey, I'm a woman, or hey, lady. But my argument to this is we do this all the time with general niceties, right? If we read somebody's name wrong, right, and we say something like, oh, hey, Charles, and they go, oh, no, sorry, I'm Charlie, I'm a woman, and like maybe you read it on a note, and you go, oh, my bad, I'm so sorry, Charlie, my bad, like things like that. We typically, when we meet people, don't really care what their gender is. I mean, if there are some things that would be something that I would care about, like for instance, let's say I accept a blind date, and I get details. I'm a woman. I'm 42. Whatever the details are. This is what I like to do, and I get there, and everything's true except she used to be a guy, now she's a woman. I would have preferred to have been told that up front. I would have preferred to have known, right? But again, I mean, it's such a crazy thing. This is something that's so new to the general public that it's just going to take some time. And it might be for the older situations, for the older people, that this is just not going to be something that people agree with. And we'll go back to the thing of, okay, well then the way you think will die out eventually, and the way the new people think will come in eventually. My argument to this is, look, you're kind of upset that there's transgendered people, male, female, in between, whatever. wait until you get bionic people. Wait until you get people falling in love with AI. This is a movie I watched just the other day called Her, where the guy breaks up with his wife and falls in love with his like it's like a phone. It's like Siri kind of, or it's like the thing I have back there, Alexa. But I'm not allowed to say her name. She'll start talking to me. So eventually, it's going to get to that. I would say watch Her, because that's an interesting look into what that is like. Is it the same love as a human love? Is it embarrassing? Should it be? There's some things that we need to talk about philosophically here. This is probably the most deep one yet, with the most specifics for us to latch onto. But still, if a dude presents to be a woman, you're required to pretend with him. It seems to me now that we know that the author is a dude. He's probably racist, but we'll figure this out. And now he's getting to specifics, which I'm happy for. It was cool for Joe Biden to blackmail the president of Ukraine, but it's an impeachable offense if Donald Trump inquires about it. So I don't know how Joe Biden blackmailed the president of Ukraine. Joe Biden blackmails Ukraine. Let's see. PolitiFact. Okay. Let's see here. Let's read. One of Republicans' key arguments opposing the effort to impeach Donald Trump is that Trump genuinely worried about corruption when he asked Ukraine's president to investigate political rival Joe Biden. On Facebook, some users are taking that misleading point to its extreme. Let me get this straight, reads one meme. Biden blackmailed Ukraine with $1 billion in tax dollars to drop an investigation into his son. And Democrats want to impeach President Trump for simply asking if it was true. Okay, so that's probably what he's referencing. Post was flagged as... oh, here it is. Okay. Again, I hate these memes. The post was flagged as Facebook's effort to combat false news. Key takeaways. Biden didn't blackmail Ukraine. His demand that a prosecutor be fired was the will of the United States government and other Western leaders. Okay, so it wasn't Biden at all, it was the US government and Western leaders, okay? There's no evidence that Hunter Biden was under investigation at the time that Biden made his request, okay? Well, this is already weird, that Biden made his request. Trump wasn't simply asking if it was true. He wanted a public announcement of an investigation into the Bidens. Correct. He wasn't asking if it was true. I remember this phone call. He was saying, it was basically, this was the whole quid pro quo thing. He has said, hey, I will help you if you get rid of Joe Biden for me. Because at the time, he knew Joe Biden was likely to be his main running opponent. So that is not okay. We don't do that as presidents. That's something that you would see from a socialist government or a fascist government, which is likely why you see Antifa around so much. They're anti-fascists. This is what they want to fight against is bad behavior like this. So, what Biden did in Ukraine. Biden in 2015 threatened to withhold $1 billion from Ukraine if it didn't fire Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin. Gotcha. Okay, in 2015, when he was still vice president. There's no evidence Biden did this to shield his son from scrutiny. Okay, so there's conflation going on. In 2014, Biden assumed a lead role, when the opposite is Trump literally said Biden's name and said, hey, if you help me, I'll help you. But I can only help you if you help me get rid of Biden. That's like his phone call was pretty clear. I'm wondering if we would be able to find it. Trump. Oh my gosh, I can't even type. Trump phone call. Ukraine. I have to be specific because there's been so many now that are really, really bad. Ukraine President Zelensky, a staged reading. Oh, nice. I'm kind of looking for one. So this is from Vox.
It started out like a typical...
Nope, don't care. So congratulations on the great victory. We all watch you from the States. Terrific job. That's not what I'm looking for. So there's nothing really wrong here. The United States has been very, very good to Ukraine. I wouldn't say it's reciprocal necessarily, but those things are. So he's basically kind of setting up before he asks. He's basically saying the United States, hey, we've been good to you, and we'll continue to be good to you, but you haven't been very good at us. It's almost like, hey, you owe me. You kind of owe me. So I think these are they're talking about sanctions here. Buy more javelins from the United States for defense purposes. So this sounds, again, like this was sanctions against Russia for their their bad actions in the Middle East, right? And I guess they're saying Germany and Canada were not very, or no, Germany and France were not very. Sorry, Macron is from France. Germany and France were not very good at keeping up on those sanctions against the Russian Federation. So he is saying, well, we're ready for the next step. We're ready to buy javelins. So again, and then Trump name drops. He says, well, I know that you know about Biden's son, so you're going to let me know. You tell me, and then maybe I can help you out with those javelins. That is a quid pro quo. I will give you what you're asking for if I get something that benefits me politically. That is what we don't like to do in America. So that this is the first talking point I think that we've come across that I think is the thing. That's what I mean, is it starts up here as very, oh, this is, okay, I could agree with this. Oh yeah, pretty vague, whatever. You could get a lot of people to agree with this. But then near here to the bottom, after you've hit like 4 or 5 lines and people have stopped reading and they already like your post, you've shared complete disinformation or misinformation. Let's just go to the next one. People who have never been to college. Yeah, this is a long one. Sorry, I'm gonna try to wrap it up quick. This is what I mean, though. Just choose 3 points, and we can have a good conversation. People who have never been to college should pay the debts of college students who took out huge loans for their degrees. People who have never been to college should pay the debts of college students who took out huge loans for their degrees. I'm assuming this means forgiving student loan debt, is what I'm assuming he means. Again, he's being very vague. Instead of straight up attacking a point, because that's not nearly as popular or sexy, he is just going vague. But I'm assuming that's what he's talking about. There's been arguments about this on both ends. I think I agree mostly with forgiving student debt if the student is under a certain money-making level in life. I feel like we progressed to the point where high school is not generally enough to earn a living wage. 2 years of college is. I am cool with us as a society paying for high school up through junior high college, or 2 years of college. That seems to be a pretty solid thing. Let them go, and if they want to continue, great, and if not, at least they have some college experience on some more specified classes that they can, earn a little bit more on. Things like psychology or civics or things like that, right? Although I would say, and I think I brought this up with Melanie, is that I would prefer to fix the education system in elementary and secondary first. Like, elementary is pretty solid, but secondary, like civics, I never learned anything about civics. And Tony, maybe you have a different experience if you indeed are watching this video. I don't know. It's a 30-minute video. I'm sorry. You put me on like 3 times speed if you want. I only learned about memorizing the presidents. That's it. I didn't learn anything else. So whatever. But I'm actually okay with forgiving student loan debt from people who are trying to, especially people who are hurting right now with the pandemic. I think I could be argued that this is okay for a certain class of people. Now, of course, people who come from like super rich families, they don't need it. So no, of course not. Immigrants with tuberculosis and polio are welcome, but you'd better be able to prove that your dog is vaccinated. I have no idea about this one. Maybe it's true. I have no clue. But immigrants with tuberculosis and polio are welcome, but you'd better be able to prove your dog is vaccinated. I have no idea, actually. I can't even combat this one. I have no idea about this one, so I'm going to let it go. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, I have no idea. Irish doctors and German engineers who want to immigrate to the U.S. must go through a rigorous vetting process. All immigrants go through a rigorous vetting process, but any illiterate gangbangers who jump the southern fence are welcome. That's not true. Again, this is conflation. A majority of the people who illegally get here are people who are here already and their visas just run out of time. These are people who flew in here. They don't jump fences. Typically, they dig under them. Typically, they wade across rivers. They typically don't actually go through the fences. But people who do go through the fences, very few of them are the gangbangers. Most of them are children. Their parents take them and they want to bring them over to a better country, and then they want to stay. They work. I have an anecdote, but I'm not actually going to share it. I know of somebody who said that they had been at some point an illegal immigrant, and now they're not. So it's like I have personal knowledge of this, right? But any illiterate gangbanger, and he's not an illiterate gang member. He didn't jump the fence. Again, he came here on a visa and it slipped. And then, yeah, so there should be a path to citizenship. So what's interesting is that most people don't understand about immigrants, especially the undocumented ones, is that these people are paying taxes. These people are paying taxes. All right, I'm sure it's going to be interesting if he points this out, but there's a big thing out there that, oh, well, we have illegal immigrants voting. It's like, well, they pay taxes, though. Like, if they're above 18, they're working, they pay tax, they have to, they pay taxes. But they can't go to the hospital and get all of those socialist programs to benefit them, because if they do, then they're going to find out that they're illegal and they'll deport them. So it's like they're paying into a system that they're not getting any rewards from. There should be a path to citizenship from the people who are here, who are working. And if we're talking about DACA, and we want to talk specifically about DACA and how Biden is going to, I think by executive order, or I don't think he needs to now, I think with the Senate and the House in control, this is going to be a legit thing that we can actually get through and get done, hopefully, is... the DREAM Act, the DACA workers, all of these things, we're going to have a path to citizenship for these people, which is going to be excellent. But this is something we can actually argue with. This is good. This is another good point. But again, this person is saying Irish and German engineers, good. There's no Irish gangsters. He doesn't want to hear about any of the IRA or anything. He doesn't, he doesn't know anything about that. But Irish and German, good. Anyone south of the border, bad. They're just bad. Could it be this person here because Irish and Germans are typically fair-skinned? Could be that this guy has had a lot of bad situations with Hispanic people, and he has jumped on board the anyone who's not white is a bad person ship, and that's just not the case. Quite a few of these people are actually genuinely nice, fantastic people, and what you are seeing them represented as is completely misjudged. But we could argue this. There's some things that we could argue here. $5 billion for border security is too expensive, but $1.5 trillion for free healthcare is not. Right. So I think it's actually the opposite. At least AOC, the way she says it. 1.5 trillion for free healthcare is not, but 5 billion for border security is too expensive. Well, what is the 5 billion for? Is the 5 billion for the wall? Because then, yes, I think it's too expensive. If I tell you, what's a useless thing? I'm trying to think of a completely useless thing. I don't know what, I can't think of like a really good example right now, but $5 billion for a wall that hurts national relations, doesn't do very much anything for net immigration, and is not even a well-built wall in the first place, and it's actually a fence, not a wall. Like if this is referencing Trump's wall, it was an awful idea. It was a terrible idea. As soon as it was put up, it got knocked over by wind. We showed videos of immigrants climbing it like quickly. Like it's silly. It's 5 billion wasted monies. Now let's assume that 1.5 trillion for free healthcare is the real price point. Let's assume that that's the real price point, and not just the long term 20 years down the line this is what it would cost, whatever, because usually that's what they do is they extrapolate it, but whatever, let's assume that that's fair. At least that mistake, if it is indeed a mistake, is helping people, not keeping them out. As cheesy and as awful as the new Wonder Woman movie is, I really do feel like there was a big Trump point in there of the Middle Eastern guy building a wall, keeping people out. I'm pretty sure that was a pretty big reference to Trump, or at least a similar, like, hey, this is the same thing. If you cheat to get into college, you go to prison. Okay, this is probably the what is it, Lori Loughlin stuff. But if you cheat to get into the country, you go to college for free. Again, two totally different situations. Wouldn't you want this, though? Somebody who has all of the advantages in the world, somebody who's rich, a celebrity, wouldn't you want that person to be doing it the right way? And alternatively, somebody who doesn't have those opportunities, isn't rich, wouldn't you want that person to have the opportunity to make their lives better? Because if you say no, that's not fair, then you disagree with yourself. You want that person to stay in their zone. You want them to stay in their poverty level. And then eventually, what do they do to make money? The only thing that they can do, sell drugs, gangbang, right? Like, wouldn't you want these people who are underprivileged, who have no choice, to be enticed into bettering their lives and forgetting living their lives the way they did before? This seems like this one, I don't know who the author is, but it seems like this person is somebody who I talked to for a bit, and it'd be pretty easy to, like, convince them otherwise. Pointing out this hypocrisy makes us racists. Again, very vague. Pointing out hypocrisy makes us racists. I'm not calling anybody racist. There's 2 or 3 lines in here that I'd be like, I don't know, it's dog whistly. But no, like for instance, I don't think any of my family members are racist. I think they're incredibly conservative. I think they're probably a lot of the issue, I think, between Democrats and Republicans right now. I think especially if you choose to be Republican, you're probably super pro life, and that's the big thing that anchors you, is that you can't stand abortions. That seems to me the biggest thing. Or you hate the new woke movement of you must do this, you must do this, you must do this. 40, 50, let's see, where are we at now? 80, 50 years ago, even though slavery was well and gone for over a century, black people were still being called horrific things, still treated as second-class citizens, and this is the whole MLK movement. I don't think anyone on my family would disagree with the MLK movement. Maybe some do, but that was only 50 years ago. Some of you are older than that, if you're watching this. It's sad, but that's just how it is. Nothing makes sense anymore. Okay, this is just an age thing, so he's kind of returning back to his original point. No values. I disagree. I think I have a lot of values. No morals. I disagree. I think personally, then this person who wrote this, I don't know who it was, but the person who wrote this, I believe I have more morals than he, which is interesting because he is likely a religious person and I am not. No civility. I highly disagree. I don't think I've been uncivil to anyone, but again, and people are dying of a Chinese virus. Okay, so this person is racist. So this is something that I would say. Calling it a Chinese virus is really, really silly. And now we have something to talk about. This new strain. Are we going to call it the Britain virus? The British virus? It's not going to come up. No one's going to call it the British virus. No one's going to call it the British virus. No one's going to call it anything other than the new strain of the Chinese virus. Because right now we don't like Chinese people. Like, in terms of, like, geopolitical stuff, because they're our competitor. And the people on the right have been told by Fox News and other places that they hate us. They're coming for us. They want us dead. Which, yeah, if that's in your head, then of course, you calling it the Chinese virus is a small little dig. Now then, the argument I've heard is, well, what, is it racist to call it Chinese food? No. There's not a negative connotation to food. There is a negative connotation to a virus, right? So that's the difference, right? Irish food is good. Like, rarely do I go, I hate Irish food, or I hate Chinese food. Rarely does that happen. And if I do that, people know I'm talking about the food. But if I say the Chinese virus, it sounds as if I'm saying it's because of them that this happened, which is exactly what Trump is saying, and that is indeed not cool. Even though it began in China. So it's... I've already argued this, but... yeah. So again, here we are, another line that makes me think, well, you probably deserve that racist moniker there, sir. We are clearly living in an upside-down world where right is wrong and wrong is right. I mean, right there he's kind of interesting, because the Blue Lives Matter people who were Blue Lives Matter a week ago, I mean, they have a death, they have a cop's death on their hands now, as of yesterday. That Capitol Police officer is dead. So yeah, he's right. Right is wrong, wrong is right. Yeah, he's all over the place. He's crazy. Where moral is immoral and immoral is moral. Again, these are platitudes. Where good is evil and evil is good. Where killing murderers is wrong, but killing innocent babies is right. Exact. There it is. Boom. There it is right there. There it is. So again, this guy is probably super religious, super against abortion, super racist dude. And that's what I mean. Tony, I don't think that you're a super racist person. I don't think. I think you're a person who doesn't often get to experience the amount of people that other people get to experience. The reason that California and New York and all these big cities, Salt Lake City, the reason that they're always so blue, and I'm super curious, because I think you still live in Idaho. I'm not sure. Idaho election results 2020. Okay, I'm super curious. Okay, so Washington kind of bled in there. Boise, still deep red. Okay. But you do have some blue swaths in here. That's interesting. Okay. Oh, I wish I had a better... I wish I had a better map, because I'm curious about the numbers. Ah, here we go. Okay, so let's see here. Boise was 46%, so 120,000 people in Boise agreed that Joe Biden should be president. About 10,000 here, 8,900 here. Okay, so let's just take Boise. 120,000 people, so around half. It's like 50, 47, something like that. So, let's say that 130,000 of you think that 120,000 of you are baby killers, 120,000 of you think that 130,000 of you are racists, and it's just not the case. You guys are probably from a smaller town. You probably get along just fine. I don't know that situation. I don't know where you actually live in Idaho, by the way. But this is usually big cities. You see elevated numbers like this, right? Whereas like out here in almost nowhere, it's completely different, right? But these are where people hardly ever come into contact with other people, right? When you get into these thicker cities, you see that it gets tipped a little bit in a different direction, probably, and usually like crazy amounts, because they have more interactions with these people. It's easier to go, oh yeah, no, that's not true, right? For instance, bubbling all of this down to this, all of these platitudes, and then don't kill babies. Of course, that's usually what the sticking point is. If you like to kill babies, but that's the thing, is like, I don't think anyone is for killing babies. And if they are, they're shitty people, right? I don't think but here's the difference. Here's why I push back against the both sides thing. I think there's a bigger percentage of people on the right who are indeed racist and hate other minority people simply for being minorities, their skin color. I think there's a bigger percentage of those people than there are people who like to kill babies. That's my difference. That is why I would say posts like this kind of are not very awesome, because it says, hey, I don't want to create an argument of my own. Here's a guy who did a good thing here. Boom, good. And you think it's a good thing because of all these platitudes, these things that most of us would agree with or that we could debate. And then at the very bottom, it'll say something, it'll say some awful, awful racist thing. And then it's just not super productive. So it's been 50 minutes. I hope, I mean, I hope you're skipping around. Maybe you can just skip to the end if you want, maybe. I don't know. But maybe I don't think I'm going to edit this down. But my goodness, this is the amount of discussion that this amount of gish galloping takes. Now, if you don't know what gish galloping is, it's when you go point, defend. And then I can't possibly defend all those points one by one, especially if we're debating, right? It's impossible. It's impossible. So take 1 point, and then we can talk about it. So Tony, my challenge to you is, if you indeed did watch this video, by all means, please, 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 give me 1 or 2 or even 3 things that you disagree with, and we can have deeper conversations about them in what ought to be and policy. Because if they're platitudes of it's immoral, it's wrong, freedom, American dream, like, these are all platitudes. These are all things that most people agree with. It's not policy. I need policy. Things that actually make differences, right? And I'm not saying that this only happens on the left. It happens on the right as well. People who change their Facebook profiles just to feel good, it's like, okay, that's awesome. It's the same to me as thoughts and prayers. It's the same thing. It's just a nicety. It's just a ceremonious thing. It is kind of pointless. So give me 3 things that you disagree with and the policies, and we can talk about those policies. Medicare for all would be a good one to discuss. Let's see what else is likely going to change. Federally legalized marijuana would be something that we could easily discuss, and the implications of that. Maybe new gender pronouns. This would probably be an interesting discussion for us as well. Again, transgender people may be something you have never experienced before. I absolutely have. I've talked to people, so it's just different. It's just different. We come from different things, and I think that if I talked to you for a bit and told you about these people, for the most part, you would be fine. You like again, you'd probably be under the same thing as me, as I don't judge people by their gender. I judge them by their content or their moral character, like MLK had said 50 years ago. So I think we're done here. Tony, I hope that you do indeed find time to watch this video, because this is kind of how I have to respond to these things. Otherwise, it sounds like I'm mean or I'm being rude. I hope I'm not being rude. I don't think I was being rude. Melanie, if you happen to watch this, awesome. Great. You probably understand a little bit more about where I'm coming from as well. I am very, very much against misinformation, disinformation. This is why I respond to misinformation, disinformation. There are things that I agree with, but most of this is just a dog whistle from some racist dude. And yeah, and then they'll pin it again, because they know that they're not going to be well liked or well received. They'll pin it to a guy like Dave Ramsey. Again, it's a simple Google search just to see who these people really are, what they really believe, and how flawed, like this one, the blackmail of Joe Biden, the blackmail, is completely flawed and not true. Typically what I find is most people who post things like this, they don't have the time to research these things like I do. They don't care about these things like I do. And they just want to say, hey, this is what I feel. And it's like, okay, but is it really? And then when we want to talk more, they go, no, I don't want to talk about it. It's upsetting. Well, it's like, okay, well then just don't post, don't vote. If you don't want to be a part of the political process, fine. But if you want to be a part of the political process, great. I'm all for it. Let's have a discussion. Let's figure these things out. Have a good day. Still love you, Aunt Tony. Melanie, if you're watching, if you happen to watch, still love for you as well. There is no hate here. I love debating. That's it. And with that being said, cheers.